Right now, your non-mortgage debt is $55,850. Your income is $3,250 per month, and your monthly bills are $870. And that includes rent, which is very impressive. And last but not least, your investments in cash, you have $8,104. How do you feel about your current financial situation? And if you had to rate it between 1 to 10, what would you think it would be?
Currently, I live with my parents, so as in my monthly bills, I feel blessed. Just to keep it below and keep my income, relatively high. Probably like a 4 to 5, just
Mhm.
because I'm not so confident. The main bulk of that rating would just be from the pure income itself. And I think that's my main thoughts behind my financial situation.
I like that you're grateful that you're living with your parents. I think there are so many people out there who view living as with their parents as a stain, as opposed to
Hmm.
an opportunity. If somebody's managing their finances well, they're going to spend about 28% of their income on where they live. But if you live at home and you contribute a little bit to rent or you're living for free, you can think of that as a 28% salary raise, or you freed up 28% of your money. That's a huge boost to somebody's finances. So I love that you're grateful. I hope you're also proud with that intelligent decision making because it makes your overall finances great. Tell me a little bit more about that 4 to 5 rating. Because when I looked at your numbers, yes, there's a lot of debt, but it's mostly tied to student debt. You have very little credit card debt, though there is a bit here. I feel like you're rating yourself a little low. Why do
Hmm.
you feel a 4 to 5 range here?
Mainly because of my car debt. I feel like because I was young, I think I was 21. So a few years ago, I got it. And, I felt a little too big for my britches, got a sports car.
Ooh.
I think I also got scammed out of it a little because of the dealership, brand
Uh-huh.
new,
The upsell and upsell. Oh,
the upsell, the car problem. So that's my main problem is like, why did I do that? I think that's the main low scale because now I have to deal with the repercussions of coming up with making that monthly payment. I'm upside down on the loan as it is. I pay more than what it's actually worth. So that's my main scale rating because of that factor.
I like that you learned that lesson because I'm seeing a lot of people these days not learn that lesson. They don't realize
Hmm.
when they go into a dealership and they sign an expensive car that within a year they're probably upside down on the loan because
Yep.
the value of the car, let's say it's 25,000. Well, they got a loan, so the actual overall price they'll pay because there's interest is going to be higher than that. And then the moment you drive it off the lot, it loses value.
In a
Cars,
snap of a fingers. Yep.
if somebody takes on car debt so that they can get from their house to their job and back, that's a necessity. But the moment you cross the line of used car that can get you from point A to point B and you start entering luxury territory, that's a luxury. But you learn this lesson the hard way.
Sadly.
And while it sucks to learn a financial lesson the hard way, you
Hmm.
learned it. And there are so
Yep.
many people who are sitting there thinking, I need to lease a car, I'll drive it, and then I'll lease another car and I'll drive it. And you're already thinking about how to break that cycle. The way to break it is going to be pay it off and then drive that thing into the ground and set aside money into a high yield savings account or a money market fund, call it your car fund. And now instead of paying somebody 4%, 5%, 6%, the bank will pay you to save money in the
Hmm.
account so that you can buy a car, right? Interest will be working for you because it's in a bank account as opposed to against you when you're borrowing
Yep.
it.
Yeah, it's it's been a hard lesson, but I have been looking at, financial accounts, financial YouTubes and stuff like that. And I do agree. I want to be able to walk into a dealership one day with 30, 40K and be like, here's cash for my car. I don't want debt. I want to buy it and get to that point eventually.
I love that. I love that. Can you imagine what a power rush that is or a power trip you'll get? You walk in,
Hmm.
everybody else is sitting there trying to haggle over loan terms. Oh man, my credit score, it's good enough. Give me 5% or 4%. They're like, nah, we can only give you 7. You walk in, you get to look at the lot and be like, that one. Here's a check. I'm driving it out today. Ooh,
Yep.
ooh, that's
Yep.
lovely. And that's the
Hmm.
power of managing your money well. And you're 23 years old and you're already excited about money. You're already excited about getting a handle on it. So you will, in the future, have that power trip, have that moment where you walk on, walk off, No additional debt. You just get the car you want to drive. You are correct. You have a fair amount of debt. You currently owe $28,500 on your car. It's already underwater, and the interest rate is 4%. And that is a mistake. I completely agree. But since you're 23 and you've learned it's a mistake, you can position yourself to get rid of all of this debt, all 55,000 of it over the next few years, and then get started in the best of ways, not making mistakes and just putting yourself on a path to become a multi-millionaire who can walk into a dealership and buy a car outright. And so for me, I would give your financial situation a 6 or a 7, with the understanding that what's really carrying it is your curiosity towards money. It's the people who try to turn away, cover their eyes, pretend their finances are fine until they're not. Those people, they end up with a 1 or a 2. I'll give you a 6 or a 7.
And I will have to admit that was me before COVID. For like, it was 19, I was 19, 18 when it happened. I had debt. I was like, I don't even want to touch it. I'm scared of it. Don't want to talk about it. It's a taboo thing. And now I'm coming to understand, like, no, I gotta do this. I gotta take care of it.
Tell me a bit more about COVID-19, because to my understanding, this is when you racked up $3,800 worth of credit card debt.
I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. And I was in a different state making minimum wage at a retail store. And then I had just secured a job at a house for kids of the state, or, basically kids who had mental disabilities who their parents couldn't deal with anymore. So that's the state I was in, making pretty good money at that point. And then COVID happened 4 or 5 months later. I just had a brand new car again, way cheaper than this one, and it got damaged in a car accident. Somebody hit it, a big bus. I wasn't at fault. Nothing happened.
Okay.
Everything's safe at the end of the day. But then I was like, oh, this car is on my name. It's damaged. Income was low. And I made the ultimate decision to move back in with my parents.
Tell me about that choice to move back in with your parents. Did you feel pride? Did you feel shame? What was going through your head?
I would say it was the norm, because a lot of people had to do that during COVID. And move back for either financial reasons or they were scared. So I think my emotions were a bit everywhere.
Okay.
Where I lived, a lot of the riots started happening for the Black Lives Matter movement. So that also kind of played into it. I was scared about my location and I didn't want anything to happen. My main feeling was scared, also kind of relieved. I got to move back in with, my siblings, my mom, and I was kind of happy about that. But also probably just a lick of like, I had independence, now it's gone.
I liked that there was a logic underlying that decision that seemed to trump the emotions. Yes, the fear was there as a motivator, but I like that you looked at the situation saying, okay, I'm in a politically charged area right now. COVID-19 is here. I'm worried a bit about finances. Let's just move back in, reduce my bills. Yes, I'll have to find more work, but I can control my cost and be in a safer place. I like the logic there. So you move back home, you start looking for work, and then what?
Yeah, so I actually found the company I currently work for today, and I've been with them for 3 years. I started as just a therapist for kids with autism, and then I went back to school for my bachelor's in special education, and then I got a promotion to become a case supervisor, and now I'm overseeing the cases of children with autism and working alongside a clinical team and signing off on my field work hours, which is why I went back to school and accrued that higher debt for my master's. And now I'm just currently I'm grinding to get all that money from that type of income.
Well, first, you're doing incredibly noble work. I also love a lot of your financial decisions there. One part is getting the bachelor's and getting that further education. The stats around getting higher education are phenomenal. People who stop at high school have twice the unemployment rate and make about half the earnings on a median basis compared to people with a bachelor's degree. So while education in the United States is expensive and you do have plenty of student debt, it does pay long term. I also love that you are able to get that promotion. This is something that people underestimate in the world of finance. They like to think, oh, I need to invest in the new crypto, this, NFT, that, all this garbage. Do you know what's the most
Yeah.
reliable way to make money? Compete against your coworkers, get the promotion, do a good job there. That's guaranteed money into your pocket every single week. You get that extra money, and now you have more money to throw out the markets, more money to take care of yourself with. It's a beautiful thing. Or in your case, also pay off debt. I don't know if you are sitting there saying, I think this is a good financial choice, but you're doing everything right. Doing
Yeah.
everything right. The money on the credit card, was that due to COVID-19 just moving expenses, or how did you come to get some credit card debt?
So when I did my bachelor's, I worked part-time, and then because of COVID, the hours kept getting cut and cut and cut. That credit card just became gas, food money. And then, especially when you work in this behavioral health care field, you need self-care so you don't go crazy.
Yep.
So, a little bit of vain purchase is there for you self-care, anything like that. And then because of COVID fund money, we're all locked in the house. So maybe it was a Netflix subscription or a video game or something like that. So that's how it got racked up.
I don't think you're going to end up racking up more credit card debt in the future because you seem focused on finance and you can fix this entire situation. So let's talk about getting rid of the Capital One credit card and wrapping up that debt. We have $3,800 on it. It has a 30% interest rate. It's a beast. If I were you, I would take $3,600, not everything in your bank account. I would leave 1,000 behind. I would take 3,600 and just throw it at the credit card and almost entirely polish it off. Within 2 weeks, once you get paid, you can probably polish off the rest of the Capital One and the PayPal card as well. The reason I would do it that way is that your interest rate on the Capital One and the PayPal is absurd. As an everyday investor, the rough rate of return you can expect from investing is about 10%. That is historically what the US stock market has produced. You can make 10%, but you're paying 30%, right? It's 3 times. It's a financial war crime what Capital One is currently doing to you. You do not need to have a credit card to be financially successful. Actually, credit cards are definitely a net negative on most people's entire financial situation. How do you think you're going to feel once those are gone?
Relief, because like you said, the interest, and I'm paying all that interest, and that money can just go in savings instead of just going to Capital One's pockets and not even paying off my bill.
So I think if I were you, I would say, you know what, in 2 weeks, I'm done with this. Cut it up, move on. And if you never have a credit card again, it's a beautiful thing. I would be so happy for you.
I don't want to get back in debt. I don't want to use credit cards. I don't want to do that every day or monthly. Like, oh, I paid $300. Next month, I got to pay off that $300. But the back and forth game.
Yep. And I think that's so wise. So wise. Most people in America who have a credit card shouldn't. They are a high risk, low reward instrument. If you don't mind me asking, when did you get your first credit card?
I was 19 and I had just moved out and I had no dishes, no pans, no pots, nothing. So it was like buy your household supplies with a credit card and go pay it off.
You're 19. Yep. And all of a sudden, we're going to give you, as a country, we're going to let people have the opportunity to get a line of credit with a 30% interest rate attached to it. It's absolute madness. I do not believe you're ever going to be in credit card debt again. I believe in 2 weeks, you'll have no credit card debt, and that's it. At age 23, you'll do what so many Americans are unable to do, which is never have high interest debt again. And you deserve that. You deserve to be rich. This is America. You do everything correctly, which is pay off debt, invest into different funds in your retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts, and let that thing compound for 40 years. You'll have several $1,000,000 ready to retire. And you deserve that. Every person deserves that. But the whole system's goal is to distract you with sports cars and credit cards. And you've realized you got distracted, and now you're focused, and you're doing it at age 23, which is incredible. Tell me a little bit about your working situation. Are you still in school? Tell me what your day-to-day is like.
Yeah, so school would be every 10 weeks, I do 2 classes. And I don't take any breaks just because I just want to get it done. So mainly the weekends is dedicated for school, and during the weeks it's about a 26 to 28-hour work week. Coming up in the summer, I have more clients coming onto my caseload, so it is going to go up to about 30 hours a week.
I respect that grind. I respect the heck out of that. You're working nearly a full-time job while going back to school. After you're done with school, will your income go higher?
I have to sit for a board certified exam,
Mm-hmm.
which, doesn't have a great passing rate for some people. You
Mm-hmm.
could take it up to 4 to 5 times.
Okay.
So I have 2 years to basically pass that test and, get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully I'm looking at a 80,000, 90,000, up to $100,000 job.
Fantastic. Well, first, I have no doubts you're going to pass that exam. Zero. I hope you have
Thank
no
you.
doubts either. You have a hustler's mindset. Just got to get that confidence going. Because I like that is the one thing that's Sire Conversations drive me nuts. I'm looking at somebody who's going to be successful, who is going to be doing a great job in the future. And you feel like, am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? I know you're going to do it. You're not going to be a 4 or 5 time test taker. You're going to pass it in 1 or 2.
Thank you. Yeah. That's the hope. I know you keep saying like be a little more confident, but I think COVID kind of has swayed all of my mentality, and I do need to start thinking like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about how COVID shook up your mind.
Yeah. Just the uncertainty of everything. It's unprecedented time right now. I Yeah, I just started learning about my own income, my own money and debt payment and all of this stuff. So it's going to be kind of tricky to start the first time and kind of learn it. And I want to be successful and not fail. So that's kind of where it's coming at. And just make sure that I don't fall back into debt like that or rack up a credit card again if something happens. I don't want to be like that. So, I am planning to move out. Like that uncertainty comes like if I move out again, what else is gonna happen? What am I gonna have to move back in with my parents? Am I gonna open up another credit card? I don't want to, but who knows at the end of the day. So that's why I'm mainly scared and hopeful, but I'm also trying to be like, I got this, I can do it. There won't be any more worldwide pandemics shutting down everything and kind of threatening my line of work, hopefully.
Well, let's go with that. Here's the one thing I can tell you about the future that's guaranteed. There is a lot of uncertainty. Another guarantee about the future is it's going to be full of emergencies, and you have no idea what they are, right? We went dot-com boom, real estate bubble, global pandemic. Like what? What kind of line do we want to draw there? Are we overdue for another pandemic? Is the real estate bubble like, do we need another one? There's no schedule here. It's all
Yeah.
just random. The future is uncertain. I can't do anything about that. I too am facing an uncertain future, but what we can do is financially prepare for it. To know the world will throw us curveballs, but we can defend ourselves. You're already doing a great job going through what I call the plain talk money plan. It's just a list of steps to get you from bad finances to a great spot. Step 1 is make sure your cash flow positive, and you're doing great there. Fantastic there. You're living on less than $1,000 a month. You have $2,000+ as somebody who doesn't technically have a full-time job. You're also going back to school, and you're still having a ton of money that you can throw at your debt, invest, and I love that. And you're poised in the long run to make even more money to accelerate this process. Now, I'm going to be honest. This is going to be a controversial statement in the world of finance I'm going to make. There's really 2 camps here. There's people who try to squeeze every dollar they can out of investing versus those who like to shore up their financial foundation. And I'm in the latter group. I don't like the uncertainty. I don't like the risk that comes of debt. So once you're done with the credit card debt, which you'll be done within 2 weeks, which is beautiful, I would start looking at your student loans and your car debt and trying to purge it as fast as possible. The fact that you have $2,000+ every single month to throw at this means you can wrap up at least one of those 2 debts within a year. How would that feel in a year if you only had either a card payment but no student loans, or vice versa?
I think that's what I've been wanting to do is pay off. I did the snowballs. It started with the smaller and worked up to the bigger. So I did have other credit cards that had lower balances.
Really?
So
You
yeah,
should be
I
so
think I
proud.
yeah, I was scammed as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old getting
Mm-hmm.
Home Depot credit card,
Oh,
Kohl's, Target, this
oh,
and that, this and that. And
oh.
so
Classic disaster.
yeah, I've paid them off, cut them up, not used them, and now I'm focusing on the bigger debt, which is like all the interest rate scares me. The one thing I am happy about is my car is relatively low, the interest rate. And
Mm-hmm.
right now for my Moella or my school loan, it is 6.5, but there is no interest because of the whole Biden thing going on with school. So I was planning to attack at least the school first for a year, and then, like you said, hopefully end up with at least one big debt, such as the car or anything else that I might have at that time, might go back to school, continue something like that.
I love that. Everything you just said, do it. Finish off the credit card debt and look to the school debt. And I know the current deal between Biden and McCarthy might start up the student loans. I don't know how that will affect your student loans in particular, but because it's the higher interest rate compared to the car, I would start there. Yes, the debt snowball has been successful so far, but you're at a point where you don't need to lean into the debt snowball. You can prioritize it by interest rate because you have a record of success here. You've wiped out a bunch of other credit cards, which didn't show up on the debt eliminator because they were already eliminated, which is beautiful. And so you can now do this in the most mathematically beneficial way, which is target the most expensive debt first, the highest interest rate, and work your way down.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what I was confused about with the bigger debts. I didn't know how to attack it because they're not $200, $300 spread out here and there. They're like big lump sums. So I'm like, how? Okay, so now I have confirmed that at least attacking the 6.5, which right now technically is a zero, is more beneficial in the long run.
I would start there personally. I think that the complexity of student loans always will exist in terms of will debt forgiveness get struck down in the Supreme Court, or will the Supreme Court allow it to go through? Will Democrats in 5 years be able to get something done regarding that? Or maybe the Republicans will change their mind. All of that uncertainty, I can't predict. It may turn out that you pay off your student loans and then all of a sudden $5,000 is forgiven. But I would personally just view that as water under the bridge. Because when we're looking at personal finance, we're effectively dealing with millions of potential dollars. If you just put away $500 a month for 45 years into the stock market, you'll be a multi-millionaire, right? You'll be doing just fine because that's the power of compound interest. You're just letting it cook. Is thousands of dollars nice? Yes. Do I think that's a good reason to carry additional debt for the possibility of it? No. I love that you're trying to mitigate uncertainty. And you might look back and say, okay, I probably shouldn't have powered through the student debt and the car because maybe the stock market had a really good 5 years or 2 years. Getting debt free, answering to no other institution. It's just you and your money. I think there's no better feeling in the world. There's no better place to be.
I mainly agree, especially because I don't know stock market anything. I just know the name stock market. I don't know the ups and downs, the trends, and I don't want to have, 55,000 over my head thinking Bitcoin might succeed. I don't even know what Bitcoin is at the end of the day. Like
Yep, and you don't need to. Bitcoin is a dangerous game of chicken. As for the stock market, you will need to brush up a little bit here, but the good news is investing in the stock market is super easy, incredibly easy, because the winning strategy is not to try to figure out what company is best. The winning strategy, the average person should do, is buy everything. Because if you own everything, you can't miss out. I see you've already started dabbling in some investing. Tell me a little bit about that.
just briefly looked into it, I think in the last month. And I know it's a chance to make money without actively working per se.
That's a good starting place. It's better than the people who are so afraid of it, they won't touch it. They're like, oh, I think it's all dangerous and risky. I love the curiosity here because there's a dirty secret that nobody wants to say, but we all need to acknowledge it. When we're all 75, our mind's going to go, our body's going to go, or both of it's going to go, and you can't work. So you can't
Mhm.
actively make money anymore. You need to do it all passively. And there
Mhm.
is no easier way in today's age to make money passively than by owning tons of companies and having them work for you. And that's all the stock market is. If you buy a share of Apple stock, you now own Apple. Literally, the company's job is to make you money. It's the purpose of companies. They make money for the shareholders. Congrats, you now own a share of Apple. You're a shareholder. Tim Cook answers to you. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
And for us, everyday people who are not named Warren Buffett, the easiest way is to just become a shareholder of every company. And something like a target date fund can do that for you. You can always consider a robo or a financial advisor. That's also a very viable opportunity. The other way I really like is called the 3-fund portfolio. If you're interested in learning more about investing and you don't mind managing a couple investments yourself, that's an opportunity for you too in the long run. But if you want to keep it really simple from the get-go, target date fund does all the work for you in a single investment. Depending on the fund, it will buy anywhere from 10,000 to 12,000 different companies and a ton of bonds too. Or just get an advisor. Keep it really simple. Now, I do see you have this $57.20 biweekly contribution. Is that correct? Going into your retirement account?
Yes. It recently, my company just matched 3% it was, but because of the financial COVID thing, they match only 1% now. So that is the current reflection of the 1% match.
Ooh, I'm so proud of you. I'm sad to hear that they dropped their match, but you're absolutely right. You're in a situation where grabbing that match is worth your time. You seem to be fiscally responsible. If you had 18 credit cards, even though a match is an 100% return, I would be hesitant to be like, you should keep going for the match because you wouldn't be showing that you're financially responsible. But you are showing you're financially responsible. So if there's free money on the table, you can take it, even if it takes a little longer to pay back your debt. Nobody gives free money. The match is one of the few exceptions to that. Do you think you'll be living at home for a long time? Are you planning on moving out soon? What's the deal with your current living situation?
The catch is if I move out to a closer location to the Central Valley in California, I would get more clients. That the bank account of 4,600 that was towards moving out money or the down payment, or like I'm not gonna buy, I'm gonna rent a house because that's all I can do right now. But if I looked at the interest for that Capital One and it's like they're taking my money, I could have just put my savings to that, then it would have been a little different financially, as in like maybe I can't move out in 3 to 5 months. But right now, after talking to you, it kind of seems like paying off that credit card would be the biggest financially.
Yes, I am a big believer in trying to get your slate as clean as possible, especially when it comes to credit card debt. Because if you move out and your takes another 2 months to get clients, this Capital One will keep ticking. You'll keep working for this parasitic employer who's always coming for a little bit of your paycheck, that 30% interest rate. If you do the math and you say, okay, actually, it financially makes sense for me to start picking up rent relative to the clients I expect to get, then I would encourage you to do it. If it's going to break even or you're not sure what it's going to look like, I'd caution you a little bit. Because I will tell you, rent at $100, whoo, that's an incredible rent. That's mind-blowing. I wish my rent was $100. It is not.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I live in California, so it's gonna cost an arm and a leg for rent when I do move out. So that was kind of my mindset coming into like talking to you today, is take the $3,800, pay it off for that credit card. Now I have $3,800 theoretically in my pocket to save, to put towards maybe if I move out. But I didn't know if that was a good idea. I don't know,
just do the math relative to what you think you're going to make, and then take out taxes, and then compare that to what rent's going to cost you. You can figure out if this is going to make sense. Additionally, if you take on more clients, you'll probably have to work longer hours. Will that impact your studies? Because to be frank, the faster you pass that test and your income doubles, the faster you find significant financial success. Whatever it takes to pass that test as quickly as possible, that is probably, in the long run, your number one financial priority. Regarding your bills, I was actually overall very impressed. It's not much of a surprise. At $870 a month, you're spending next to nothing. But even if we ignore your incredible rent situation and we just say you're spending $770 a month, that's still very little. Yes, your grocery bill is at $250. There may be opportunities to bring that down just a touch, But to be honest, you're already netting a very solid positive cash flow, especially given your circumstance. And you don't spend much money on eating out. You're spending $40 a month. I'm used to seeing people who have the same amount of money going to their groceries as they do eating out, which is insane if you're stuck in credit card debt. Do you have any other bills besides this, or is this really the full story?
I just started getting charged rent for my mom just because I took over the room for my office. She doesn't charge me for my living quarters, thank goodness. Utilities, that's actually an overestimate. I pay the trash bill. It's about $50 a month, but I don't want to, I overestimate in case anything happens.
I think being conservative is always a wise choice here, right? Overestimating is way better than underestimating, getting to the end of the month and being like, "Oh, I'm short money. I can't do everything I was anticipating or can't pay down my debt quickly enough." So I respect that decision.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you had mentioned when you originally had moved out prior to COVID-19, you did some impulse purchasing. Is that correct?
Yes.
It sounds like you learned your lesson though, because when you go through the bills, it's like we're keeping this tight. Is this just another hard lesson you learned?
Yeah, especially because a lot of it was vanity stuff, fancy looking items, this and that. Looking back on it, half of the stuff I don't even use anymore, half of it just not even relevant. Other parts of it is the Starbucks and the Dutch Brothers and all of the fancy coffees. And it's like, I started to become more like eco-friendly. So it's like, why am I spending all that money towards plastic, all of this? So that's kind of the mindset too.
I love that. Being eco-friendly and saving money. That's a double win. I love that.
Definitely back in the day, it was more of a coping habit. I had a bad day at work, I go and spend money, or I bought this stupid thing or that. Now, kind of learning to not swipe the card when I'm sad. So that's been the biggest reason as to why I don't buy anything big anymore like that.
It's a tragedy in the system that everybody is taught that spending money will make you happy and successful. It's a ridiculous thing, right? At the end of the day, happy, successful people often have good finances behind them. The people who look happy and successful might not be at all because they're always worrying about money in the back of the head. Now, speaking of the car, have you considered trying to trade in the car and get a different one?
I have, but then my parents are like, pretty much bite the bullet, drive it down, and then save up money, go buy a car. Just because right now I owe about 28,000 in current, because I got in a car crash earlier last year. It wasn't my fault, but because of that, it made my Kelly Blue Book value go down to 16,000 for the total of the car of what it's worth. So if I didn't get into an accident, I'm pretty sure it would have been about $22,000 what it was worth.
Mhm.
So I could have done like a saving, the rollover swap kind of thing, but because of that accident,
You are probably correct here. Feel free to run the numbers, but driving the car into the ground, getting as many miles as on it as you can, that is likely your best way forward.
So hopefully that car lasts me for about a good 5 to 6 more years, which would give me enough time to put money into an account that pays me back and then go buy a new one. So that's the thought. That's the hope.
Yeah, and not even the hope. That's the plan. Let's
That's the plan.
let's move on from this hope stuff, right? That's the
Mhm.
plan. That is what you're going to do. This car
Mhm.
doesn't have a lot of miles on it. If you can drive it for 6 years from where we are today, you can pay off all your debt in 2.5 years, right? So let's just say
Mhm.
that gives us 3.5 years to save for the car. If you keep doing the same monthly payment of $500 a month, you'd have about $20,000 in cash, not counting any interest you get on the savings account, about $20,000 in cash for that next purchase in 6 years. And it might not be the car of your dreams. You might be still building your way up, but you can still get a very nice car at $20,000 with no loan whatsoever. And then do the process one more time, $500 a month, but instead of 3.5 years, next time, another 6 years. If you're putting $6,000 away for 6 years, that third car, so if we're on your first car right now, your third car, you'd have $36,000 to walk into a dealership, plus any interest you get over those years while saving, plus interest to walk to a dealership and say, I'll take that car. That's going to be an amazing moment. And that is going to happen within the decade.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, you should love that. You should get excited. You should put a smile on your face because now look what we just did. Going back to some of the earlier comments about uncertainty, we just took an uncertain future and locked that down pretty fast, didn't we? In a decade, I'm confident if you keep focused, you'll have no debt. You'll have a 6-month emergency fund. You'll have a well-funded retirement account. You'll be making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. And you'll go into a dealership and buy the car you want with cash.
Sounds like a very good plan, and that makes me excited.
You should feel excited. There's so many people your age, 23. There's so many people your age thinking, how do I delay paying the consequences of my mistakes? There are people sitting there saying, oh, I bought this car. Yeah, I lost money on it, but now I don't want to drive it anymore. Maybe I'll just roll over this loan into another auto loan. Or, man, I really want this piece of clothing or this video game. Let me get another credit card. They seem to be just handing these things out left and right. But you have realized it's all garbage, all trash, all absolute cruelty against the average person. And you're escaping it. And in a decade, you are going to be in a financially dominant position. In 2 weeks, you're going to be completely free of credit card debt. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
That sounds so good to say. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for that advice of paying that off right away. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Excited.
You should
ecstatic.
You should
no,
be.
it's confirmed everything.
You deserve to make the most of the systems that exist, and I love that you're on track. And I love that you're quickly fixing your mistakes. You wiped out a bunch of other credit cards already. It's beautiful.
I do have a question. So with those credit cards, if I set them up, don't use them, does that affect credit score?
When you cancel a credit card, it will likely negatively impact your credit for 2 different reasons. One, for some reason, because honestly, I think it's because the system is so corrupt. When you cancel a credit card, they remove it from your credit history, which is absurd, right? You've already proven on this credit card that you're responsible of money. You paid back all your debt. You didn't get it sent to collections. You wrapped it up. But then they say, actually, you didn't, the history wasn't really there. And so they ding you for it. They knock down your score. Additionally, part of your credit score calculation is something called credit utilization. It's the percent of money you borrow every month relative to how much you could borrow. You want to, if you're building credit score, you want to keep it 30% or less. If you cancel a credit card, the amount of money you can borrow goes down. So your credit utilization, if you still have an existing credit card, looks worse. So if you have 2 credit cards, one has a $4,000 limit on it and one has a $1,000. If you spend $1,000 a month, your credit utilization rate would be 20%. You lose the $4,000 credit card, you're now at a utilization rate of 100%, right? Using every penny. And thereby you look like you're a bad person to lend money to.
Yeah.
But I want you not to get bogged down in that. Credit scores are nice. Don't get me wrong. They make things easy. You go apply for an apartment. They're like, oh, your credit score, great. You're good. Or a mortgage makes it really easy. But it was made for lenders. It wasn't made for you. They want you to play the whole game. But the whole purpose of this game was developed over the past 30 years. And it's just so that people who lend money can have an easier time doing it. Now they don't need to get to know you. They don't need to figure out your job situation. They just punch you into a computer and your score, and it spits out what the terms will be. Very profitable if you're a lender, and not so profitable for the average person, because the average person doesn't really get a good feel for what it's going to be like. Everybody's like, oh, have money, have money, have money. Because they've calculated down to the penny how much debt you can take on before you break. And then they're going to bring you to that point and have you treading water endlessly, working for all these different banks and credit cards, endlessly drowning in debt, never getting ahead. They're not going to make you bankrupt. They're just going to keep you suspended. If at the end of all of this, for some reason you wanted a credit card, I would be hesitant, but you have shown that you're taking it seriously. And so if you want to play the credit score game, not the biggest fan, but fine. I think it's wiser to avoid the game since credit cards have lost you money, not made you money. All the rewards are not going to compare to 30% on that Capital One. But if you wanted to play the game, you could.
And I think with the debt on that one credit card, I'm bad at playing the game, so I don't want to play the game.
Yep. And then in that case, close it down. You're going to be fine. We know that based on our conversation here, you're going to buy your next car in cash. So you don't have to worry about that. And as for trying to find a place to rent, I don't know what your credit score is. Maybe it's a little difficult, but if you show them, hey, I have a stable job, here's what it pays, I do not miss my other bills, I have a long history of paying it well, people are always looking for a good renter. And if you can just show it the old school way, you'll find a place. When you go to buy a house in the future, just go through a process called manual underwriting. This is just another old school strategy because, again, credit scores are a new thing. Past 3 decades is when they came about. The manual underwriting, again, you just prove that you're a good person. Hey, I've paid off all my bills, every one of them, electric, rent, etc., for the past 3 years without missing a single payment. And here's proof of my income. You really think I'm going to be a bad person to lend to because I don't play the credit score game?
That makes it way more easier for me. It puts me at ease knowing if I cancel those, there's other ways to get into that house, get into that apartment, anything like that. So thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's more cumbersome, but like that cumbersome might save you another $10,000 of credit card debt. For most people, doing that slightly more tedious way will make them significantly richer. If you don't want to play the game, I'm 100% behind you. Very supportive.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Overall, I want to say, well done. I really want you to feel good about your financial situation. At the end of this, I know you have some actionable steps, right? You're thinking about paying off your credit card debt entirely within 2 weeks while starting to then work on the next debt. By having a plan, you don't need to hope about the future. You can turn your future into something where you're doing very well financially, where you are on track to become a multimillionaire by the time you retire.
Thank you for sure for all of your insight on this.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.